Welcome back to another message crawler update. In this update, I'm going to show you what's new in Slack parsing in version 5 of message crawler. Let's go to my screen and I'm going to show you what we got. Alright, so you see our typical message crawler. We'll go to import menu and we'll select Slack, channels, DMs, all that good stuff. And I want to go over what all these new settings are and how I have modified the screen in order to perform better import of Slack data. So let's start with our checkboxes on the left. So download attachments. You guys know how you had to click a button to download the attachments. Now we can just simply check it, say, yes, I want them downloaded. And then when you perform your import, they will be downloaded. So it works the same. If you don't want to do it, you can uncheck it and download attachments the old way, which is just clicking a button. Now, we have another option saying link to existing files only, do not download. So this option works together with download attachments. And what could happen is people perform Slack conversion multiple times because they might be doing different custodians or they're trying different settings. And if they have already downloaded attachments, they're already stored in a folder. And if anything errored out, there is no need to retry it. It's still going to error out. So what this does is it skips retrying of attachments that have failed to download in the previous download attempt. So this is just going to look for attachments in the folder, and it's going to link them. And if they don't exist, then they're just going to be missing. Next, we have an option for relative path. Again, we have options to should you use full path or relative path. That's up to you. Another thing we can do is save raw JSON as native files. And the reason why this option came up is Slack exports are very, very complicated. There's so much complexity in it, so many layers, and so much additional information that just doesn't fit into RSMF structure. And in fact, if you try to put it in a DAT file, you would have columns going, to the right, like I don't even know to how many letters, right? So there is so much data in those JSON files. And what we're doing with conversion is we're picking out things that are relevant, right? We're picking out our names, dates, and actual message bodies and emotion, reactions, and so on. And some people expressed interest in seeing original raw JSON data so that if they looking at a message and maybe not enough information or they want to know more about something, they could see that JSON file and scan through it and see like, okay, is there something missing? Is there a new feature that Slack had added that's not supported yet? So they could either get additional information from that native file or they could perform a quality control. So that's what this will do, is it will create a native file for JSON. And this only will going to work in the workflow where you create a DAT file first and then perform like a review when you're looking at your data in Excel-like style. So that's when this is going to be very, very helpful. And the last option here is generate URL for links. One thing I found is Slack users like to send links to Google Drive or Google documents that are stored in the cloud. I'm not sure what the reason is, but not Microsoft, but specifically Google. That's where they send a lot of links to. And those files cannot be downloaded, right? They're not like normal attachments. There is no native format for those files. And in fact, there is no credentials to even access that data. However, we want person doing review to know that that document is referenced. So this option will generate a .url file. And if a reviewer, well, first of all, they'll see that there is an entry for it, that the file exists. And then if they click on that link or copy and paste it to a browser, they'll be taken to Google to log in to access that document. And if they have username and password, they'll be able to log in and look at the document. Now, it is unlikely that they're going to be able to actually access the document. So point here is merely indicating existence of this document, and then a separate collection effort needs to happen to to get that and processed and so on. It's most likely not going to be integrated into the same RSMF file. But most important point is to be aware of that there is an online document that exists, and it potentially could be interesting. Okay, so then we have our normal prefix, conversion of a time zone, and time, date and time limit that you can specify here. And we also have a separate paths where we can store our attachments as well as our URL files. So you can choose to keep them in separate folders for organization. Now, one other thing you'll note is when you click on Import Slack, once you open, everything sort of gets locked. And it's because some of these steps have to happen during import and some during loading to grid. That's why these controls get kind of locked, so you don't change it in between. If you need to unlock things, you can click this button, Unlock Control, but you want to do it until you want to take it through the whole process without messing with settings in between. So you import, and then you click Load to Grid, and then your data shows up here, and then you can work with it as you were before. Now, final update. Now, the last thing I want to mention is how Slack bots, or just bots in general, are being identified. And in the previous version, bots were just identified as unknown because they're not users and their name isn't stored in the users table. In this version, I'm putting more effort into trying to extract bots' name. It could be stored in multiple places, so it may not be perfect. Sometimes bots could be stored with a username, sometimes separately, sometimes there could be ID. So there are lots of places where bot identification could be stored. And the reason is sometimes they are Slack bots that are created by Slack. They could be bots by third-party software, and they could be an automation that's tied into Slack, which is like a Zendesk, which doesn't actually show up as a bot, but it is. So there are lots of weird stuff going on in Slack. A point is, bot identification is much better now, and I'm trying to extract the name of the bot that is posting, and that information is going to be available in the From field. All right, so those are all updates I have for Slack for this version. Thank you for watching this. I know it's been a long rant here on my part, but if you stuck with me and you're using this, thank you. Please continue using it. Give me any feedback you got. See you in the next update.